Hi, on today's video I'm going to be covering using Emacs as an application launcher on Wayland. So what we're going to be doing is using a Emacs package called App Launcher with a bit of custom code to actually create an application launcher like rofi. So I'll show you what the problem is. Basically on GNOME you have a built-in search and application launcher. The problem is that every time you hit the keyboard shortcut, it takes you away from the desktop and brings up this big menu. A couple of problems with this is that, one, you can't see all your apps because they may be in folders. An advantage of this is it will actually switch to a running application, which most launchers do. So if I type Alacrity, it will actually switch to Alacrity instead of opening it. And I'll take you through how that works and why it doesn't work with a lot of launchers. So what I'm going to do is bring up the Emacs application launcher using the app launcher package. I'm going to press the keyboard shortcut, and what you'll see is we get this launcher come up. And the interesting thing to note is that we've got no title bar. I've disabled the title bar up here. And what we can do is just basically search for something, files, open it up. And the other advantage is we can actually, if we don't give it something to open, we can press escape and the menu will just disappear. We can also press Control left bracket to the right of P, make it disappear. So what I'll do is actually go through and actually show you this in action. Let's see if it will open the settings. Okay, yeah. I have noticed sometimes it can be a bit flaky sometimes, but let's actually go through this. So this is the package, the app launcher package, and I covered this in a previous video and how you can actually create frames. But what I did was I came across a post on Reddit by Aurora Draco, and this bit of code is actually using the Council Linux app, which is a bigger package that does the same thing. But basically what the app launcher does is it stripped out a lot of the code from the Council Linux app, so that it's just an application launcher. So what I'm going to do is actually go through and show you the code here. So first of all, what we've got is require app launcher. Now the app launcher isn't on Melpa, so you could use something like Straight to install it, but I've just downloaded the EL file and put it in my Lisp directory and then require it. So what we've got down here is the function, the Emacs run launcher interactive function. What this is actually doing is it's actually making a frame. And what I've done is put in some extra code. So for instance, I've selected auto raise. So what that means is when you launch it, it's going to gain focus, so it's automatically going to be raised and gain focus so you can input text, which is obviously important. I set my Emacs frames to be full screen by default. So what I've done is set full screen to 0. Now this is the interesting part, undecorated.t. What this does is this removes the title bar on the border, and I can show you that by uncommenting that, or commenting it out rather. Oops. Just evaluate this. And now if I switch across here and open it, what you'll see is that it has a title bar here. So the undecorated option will basically remove the title bar on the border. So you can actually have a border around this as well. So if I was to come across and do like border and border color, it would actually border 10. I think it's border color. Yep. So we'll say border color, say yellow. Put the closing doodah there. And so I've obviously missed something. I can't remember what the actual option is. It border color? border. I forget what the thing is. Let me just have a quick search. Emacs border color. Border width. Did I put border? Ah, yeah, it's border width. That's what it is. Let's try that again. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we've got a big yellow border around this now. You can't have a border without the title bar. And that's one thing you can't do. So let's just switch back and disable that. So remove the border width and the border color. Stick the undecorated back on. And now I've actually got this set as the same color theme as now. Right, I've actually got it set as the same color theme as my default theme, and I haven't figured out a way to actually load a different theme for this particular frame. You can do things like, you know, set the background color, foreground color, text, all that kind of stuff, but I haven't found a way to actually swap out a different theme. So that's the auto raise, the full screen, and the undecorated. Remove the toolbar and the menu bar. What I've done is set a internal border width to 4 so that we don't have the text bunched right up against the edge. What I've also done is actually set the width to 70, which is just about the right size to actually fit all the text without it being truncated. And then we've got the height. We then have the app launcher run app, which is the command that will actually bring up the interface to allow you to search for applications and then launch them. And it does that by searching the location of the desktop files on the system. And then finally, we have delete frame, which deletes the frame if you press escape. That's basically the code. And that's basically what it does. It will come up. You can, you know, come down here and launch stuff. So, for example, transmission. We go transmission. And I said it won't switch to a running application. So I've already got Firefox open. If I run this again, it will open a new Firefox window, and it won't switch to the currently running instance of Firefox. So let's go through this and why you actually might want to use Firefox, not Firefox, Emacs as an application launcher. So the problem with GNOME on Wayland is that there isn't a great choice of application launchers that will actually work. So there's rofi, but that's an X11 application. There's a rofi fork that works on Wayland, but only on WL roots like Sway, so it won't work on GNOME. So what I'm going to do is actually come across some of these. So there's Albert, which is an application launcher in the style of Alfred on the Mac or Spotlight. Problem with this, two issues, well, 3 really. One, it's not in any repos, basically. It's not in any repositories. It's been around for quite a few years, but it's not actually in any repositories that you can easily install it. The second problem is it's actually a Qt application as opposed to a GNOME application, so it's not going to fit the GNOME desktop properly. And thirdly, there's actually currently a bug with GNOME 44.1 where when you launch Albert, the search field doesn't have focus. So you've actually got to click in it to actually get it to work. So that's the problem with Alfred, is that I'll come across to the actual thing. This is that's ulauncher. We just come across and show you the Albert page so you can see what it looks like. It's got a picture on it. Hang on a sec. Yeah, so that's basically how it looks. You search and, it comes up with stuff, and you've got plugins, that sort of thing. But it looks horrendous on GNOME. The interface looks completely out of place. So apparently Albert will actually switch to a running application, but I actually had real problems getting it to work when I've tried it previously. So that's Albert, and that's the reason why that's kind of out. The next one we've got is ulauncher, which is actually in the majority of the repositories on Linux. So you can actually install it. However, it has a really big problem with the hotkey in Wayland not working. Basically, what happens is you open the application, you set a hotkey to, toggle the window on and off, but it doesn't work in Wayland. So what you've actually got to do is you've got to open the preferences for ulauncher. You've got to set a hotkey that you're not going to use. Then you have to go to your global keyboard settings in GNOME and then add a hotkey for it and add ulauncher toggle. You do that and it might open once or twice, but then it doesn't open again. So what you have to do is actually you have to enable ulauncher with systemd, and the problem is that option might not be available in your package manager. So you may get a version of ulauncher that has got systemd support, or depending on what version of Linux you use, it might not come with the option for a systemd service, and you'd have to write one yourself. The other issue with ulauncher is that it doesn't actually switch windows either, so you're not really gaining anything by using it, and you've got to do a lot of sort of configuration for it. So those are some of the application launchers that are listed down here on the Arch Wiki. So Albert's no good. Most of these either X11 or only WL root based, so they only work on things like Sway or Hyperland or that sort of thing. They won't work on GNOME at all. We've got other older application launchers like GNOME Do, Kupfer, but a lot of those may not be in your repository because they're really old. There's Wofi and Yofi, and they're incredibly ugly. If I can come across to this one, I don't know if it's got any screenshots on here, but Wofi is hideously ugly. So pretty much most of the application launchers on GNOME won't work. So that's really annoying. So that's why we're looking for something we can actually, build ourselves. So what I want to do is actually come through and show you how desktop switching works. So there is a command line application called wmctrl, which is actually an X11 application that can be used to move windows about and kind of do lots of useful stuff. So if I run man wmctrl, what you can actually do with this on X11 is actually move windows about by their window class ID, stuff like that, but you don't have access to class IDs on Wayland. The window class IDs, you can't get them. So a lot of these things won't actually work. So there are a couple of things in here that do work. What you can do is you can actually use wmctrl-d, and what that will do is that will list all the desktops managed by the window manager, but it won't show you which windows are on the desktop. So what I'll do is switch across here, and if I run wmctrl-d, what you'll see is that it actually prints out the workspaces that are currently active, and you can see here it starts with a 0-based index, and we have an asterisk here to indicate the currently active desktop. So this is the first workspace, second workspace, third workspace. And what we can do is we can actually use wmctrl-s and then one of these numbers to actually switch to that desktop. So wmctrl-s1, that's going to switch me to the second desktop, like that. 2 will switch me to the third desktop, because it's 0 index, so there we go. So that is one thing that will work with wmctrl, is actually switching desktops. But as you can see, we've got no way of actually seeing which application is on which desktop. All we can do is actually switch the desktops. So if you run Alt F2 and then type LG, that will bring up Looking Glass. And this is the sort of GNOME interface for stuff. So if I click the Windows button here, what you'll see is it actually give me a listing of the windows that are currently active. So what you'll see here is WM class, emacs, app, emacs.desktop, and the icon. And you can exit this by pressing escape. So this will actually show you the name of the window, the class, and the app ID. So on X11 you have WM class, and on Wayland you've got what's called an app ID, and the app ID corresponds to the name of the desktop file. But the problem is we can't get any of this information outside of GNOME, so you can't access any of this information without using an extension, I think. Basically, the issue is there used to be a command where you could query this using dbus eval, but that option has now been removed and you can no longer use it. So the only way you can actually get access to the windows that are active is through an extension. So that's why wmctrl doesn't work, because it basically can't get the listing of any of the windows. So if I run wmctrl, what you can do is you can do wmctrl-l, and it will list all the windows being managed by the window manager. But that will actually not return anything. Another option that does actually work with wmctrl is the -k option. So you can use -k on or off. And what that does is that activates the window manager's show mode, show the desktop mode, so that it will, hide all the windows and show you the desktop basically. Let me just quit this man page. So wmctrl-l, you can see it's not actually listing anything. Okay, so let me just come across here. cd git servers wmctrl workspace. So what I did was just knocked up a quick proof of concept script using FZF to sort of demonstrate how this works. So what this is doing is this is using the wmctrl-d option and -s option. So it's listing out the workspaces, and you can type 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it will switch to that workspace like that. So that was just me playing around with stuff. And basically the way it works is, first of all, what we do is we have ws space as a function, and we're running wmctrl-d to list all the desktops like that, and it will come out like this. The issue is if you add a extra desktop, so if I come across here and open another thing and then switch back here, what you'll see is the first 4 desktops are called like workspace 1, 2, 3, 4, but when I've added a 5th one down here, it's blank because it's dynamically created. And I think the reason why it's putting these 4 in is because I actually set up key bindings for 4 workspaces, but the workspaces go up to 10. So I set up keyboard shortcuts to press Super 1, Super 2, Super 3 to switch to workspaces. But that's why it's not listing all the. When I create a new dynamic workspace, it's not listing the workspace here. The other issue is you can't actually name the workspaces. So you can't name, workspace 1 Alacrity, workspace 2 Emacs, workspace 3 Firefox, that sort of thing. So there's no way to get the window that is on that desktop, and there's no way to name the workspaces according to what you use them for either. So let's switch back to this bit of code. So what we got down here is what I'm doing is I'm just piping this into org. So I'll just bring this in, I'll show you. So what I'm doing here is pulling out the first 2 fields from here. So it's showing, which workspace you're on. And then I'll simply put in workspace here. So whenever I create a new dynamic workspace, it will actually give it a name. And then what we've got down here is a menu, a FZF menu, where we pull in the workspace, pass it into FZF, and then what we got down here is a case statement. And what it will do is it will match 0 to 9. So whatever number you press, it will then run the workspace function here, take in the number you've pressed, strip off everything else so it's just a number, and then run wmctrl-s and the number you've pressed. So workspace 4 would be blank, so if I go to 3, it should be the files, I think. Yeah. And just come out of that. So I just wanted to show you what actually works with wmctrl and what doesn't, and just come up with a little script like that. So there is actually a package for Emacs called wmctrl that will create a sort of interface showing you the desktops and stuff, but that's only going to work on X11. What it does is it will actually bring up a list of the sort of desktops. Let me see if I can find it. Emacs wmctrl, I think it is. wmctrl, that's the one. And this was done about 6 years ago. And basically what it does is it will allow you to see all the windows on your desktop and move them around. But again, unfortunately, this is only for X11. So I don't know if there's a way to actually modify this to kind of, bring up something like a little workspace switcher. But the issue, as I said, is you've got no way of naming the workspaces or seeing which application is currently running on that workspace. So not too much use, but it was just more of a proof of concept thing. So again, you press Alt F2 and that brings up Looking Glass. You type LG, come to Windows, and that will actually show you all the actual windows. But again, you've got no way of accessing this, as I said, without using an extension. So this is some of the drawbacks of GNOME, is that there aren't a lot of application launchers that will actually work, that look any good. Most of the application launchers either look completely out of date because they're really old applications, or they don't use the GNOME toolkit, so they look completely out of place on the desktop. So that's the app launcher. Again, this is done a couple of years ago from the Linux, the Council app, was it called? Council Linux app. And one of the contributors to this is David Wilson from System Crafters. And if I come across to the issues down here, there is an issue raised about 2 years ago. And basically what they were saying is, could we get icons? So I think what this guy has done, won't pronounce the first name, Wang, he's added, he's forked the application launcher and actually added support for, I think it's nerd icons. So if we come down here, yeah, there's a section down here for using, I think he's using all the icons. So I actually haven't tried this, so let me just have a look. So this has actually got some of the icons coming up. So what we could do is actually see if we can just swap this in and see how this works. I've got all the icons installed, so let's swap this in and see if the icons will actually work with this. So we've got app launcher here. So what I'm going to do is come across into my config emacs lisp directory, and let me just come across to my early init. So config emacs early init. Oops, wrong one. And what you'll see down here at the bottom is add to list load path config emacs lisp. So I can put in lisp files in this directory and then require them, and that's useful for applications that aren't on Melpa. If you're using straight, you can pull them in, but I'm not using that. So what I'm going to do is rename app launcher, copy the one with the icon support across, and actually see if that works. So let's mv app launcher back, and then move the one from down there to here. And let's just quit Emacs and restart it. What I'll do is actually just completely restart Emacs. Another thing I want to do is actually go through the command that we use in our hotkeys to launch the Emacs application launcher. So let's see if this has actually done anything now. 1, 2, 3. Maybe I've got to reevaluate it or something. Let's have a look. Load file, config emacs init.el. Doesn't seem to be coming up with anything. No, can't see any icons coming up there. But let's have a quick shifty through the code. I should have, oh no, I want the Lisp file, don't I? Config emacs lisp app launcher. So this is basically the same thing, but it's got a bit of code added in down the bottom for the icons. All the icon support. We've got all the icons installed. I'm just seeing if maybe if there's any reason why it wouldn't work. Provide app launcher. Yeah, well, I thought it'd just be worth giving it a go to see if it actually did come up with the icons, but it's not. Let me just see. Run app. There's two. Okay. MX app launcher run app. Yeah, it's not coming up with any icons in here either. Okay, so that's not worked. So let me just quit that. RM app launcher. Not actually listing. I've got it by default. It's actually in ZSH's list, it's hiding .back files. Okay, so let's restart Emacs. Okay. Right. So the other issue is, how do we actually do the keyboard shortcut? So what we need to do is come across into our settings, keyboard, view and customize keyboard shortcuts, custom sheet keyboard shortcut, plus what you see here is I have Emacs app launcher bound to control super space. So you give it a name, and this is the command that we're actually running: Emacs client -e, double quotes, and in brackets, well, not brackets, what is it, parentheses, I forget, Emacs run launcher, which is the name of the function. Okay, so that is the keyboard shortcut, but I want to show you a problem. So that's it running. Now if I come into here, and what I'm going to do is actually copy the code. I'm going to copy the actual command we're going to run. Okay. So if I put this in the terminal, Emacs client -e, Emacs run client, you'll see that it pops open. If I close Emacs and run it, nothing happens. Emacs is running, it's running as a systemd service, so it is actually running, but it's not working without the window being open. So if I were to do something like this, add -c, what that'll do, you can use -r, which will use a frame if there's one active, but if not, it will create one. -c will just create a frame. So if I run -c -e, what will happen is it will work, but as you can see, what's happening is it's opening a full Emacs window with all of the, border, title bar and everything, and then it's coming up with this. So that's one of the issues. Now if we have a look through man Emacs client at the options that we've got the alternate editor command, we've got create frame, reuse frame, frame parameters. So I'm guessing what you'd need to do is use something like frame parameters and somehow set the frame not to be full screen and all that kind of stuff that we're actually doing in the function anyway. So that's just something I just wanted to flag up, is it doesn't work when Emacs doesn't have a window open using just the -e option. And I haven't currently found a way to get it to open to the same size using any of the other options that Emacs client has. Let me just, and yeah, a quick Firefox. Okay, so it's obviously, you can see here when I'm pressing the keyboard shortcut, nothing's actually happening. If I open Emacs now, you'll see that the launcher is actually coming up here. So files, and see, sometimes I found, okay, it's working now. So sometimes I found that you could run the launcher and nothing would happen. Occasionally it wouldn't open Firefox, but actually restarting Emacs actually fixed that. So there are a few rough edges, but I think the advantage of it is it's a lot less in your face than this. So let me just come back to here. So for example, you might be writing something in here and you want to launch an application. Having this come up takes you away from whatever you're doing, It just brings up all this unnecessary stuff. I think there's a keyboard shortcut which just actually, yeah, so there is also a keyboard shortcut, I think it's by default, something like Super S, which will just show the search. So you've got two options. Show the application sort of like overview, will actually show all the desktop icons to search, all these icons down here. And another thing that is confusing about this is if you actually put a application in the dock down here, it doesn't show up in the list here, which is a bit confusing. So if I put files in here, files doesn't then show up in the list of applications in the grid. So that's something that's a bit confusing, but this is the only application launcher I know of on GNOME. Apparently Albert does it, but the only one that will actually switch to a currently running application instead of opening a new instance. So like Alacrity will switch to Alacrity. And that's an option that we don't have, as I said, with the Emacs launcher. Okay, so what I want to do is actually come across to GNOME tweaks and dconf and just show you some settings. So this is GNOME tweaks, and what I want to cover is the window focus. Now, by default, the window focus is set so that windows are focused when they're clicked. And this is a problem because if I switch this on, what can happen is you can see if I can get this working. You can see if I can actually get this to work. So what can happen is you can switch windows by creating a keyboard shortcut to switch workspaces. But with the click to focus option, what will happen frequently is you can see I can switch windows here, but the window is not actually focused. So what can happen is you think you're actually working on a particular window and you've got focus, and you can, press a keyboard shortcut and it will actually, another application will be focused. And it will then apply that keyboard shortcut to that application. And what typically happens a lot with me using the click to focus option is, I think I'll be typing something, I'll press a keyboard shortcut and quit the video player, or quit MPV that's playing, which is incredibly irritating. So what I found is setting this to secondary click and raise windows when focused. What this will do is I've moved the mouse off the screen there onto the second monitor, and you can see it's no longer focused. But as soon as I move the mouse back on, that window is focused. And this is important because what you can then do is you can actually switch workspaces and the window will actually be focused for you and you can type into it. Frequently what was happening otherwise, if I just switch back and open that up, tweaks, what I was finding I'd have to do a lot is if I move that across, I'll switch to a window and then I'd have to bring up the application switcher like this to actually come through and select the application that then has focus, and that's just really annoying. So that's why I stick this to secondary click. Window is focused when hovered with pointer hovering the desktop removes focus from the previous window. So what I'm going to do is bring up dconf, and this is where you can actually set key bindings for switching to workspaces. So if I just come up here, so what we've got down here is we've got stuff like move to workspace. So super shift 1, and that will move a window to the first workspace. And you can see I've only set this up for 4 workspaces here. I think that is the reason why in wmctrl that only the first 4 workspaces are actually showing up. Is because I've set keyboard shortcuts for them. So the other thing that you can do is you can move windows to workspace left or workspace right, but the option that we want is down here. So you can see here I can switch to workspace 1, 2, 3, 4 by pressing super 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But that gets a bit of a struggle with your left hand. The first couple 1, 2, 3, 4, that's all right switching with your thumb on the super key, and then your left index finger on 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you get any more workspaces than that, it's a bit of a pain. So what I do is I actually set the switch to workspace left to be super H and right to be super L. So what that means is I can just press super H and L to switch the workspaces. And I think that's probably the most efficient way to switch workspaces rather than pressing the numbers there, because as I said, eventually when you get to 5 you have to take your hand off the keyboard to press workspace 5. I said the other option you've got is to bring up the application switcher, which I've actually rebound from super tab and super shift tab to super J and super K, and that's a lot easier because then you can just have your hand on super on the your left hand on super, your right hand on H, J, K and L, and you can switch windows like that using H and J, or switch like that. So that's some of the options that affect how switching works, and some of the sort of downsides of using the Emacs application launcher. But as long as you've got Emacs running, it will work absolutely fine. As I said, sometimes I've noticed occasional glitches where it won't open something, but just doing a restart of Emacs seems to fix the issue. So hang on. So again, I can exit this window. If I don't want to run an application, I can press escape, or I can press control left bracket, just the key to the right of the P button. And what you'll notice is in Emacs, what it will say is it's disappeared now, Emacs client quit. So if I exit that, it will say quit Emacs client request. So that's the gist of it. Let's just have a quick look at the code again. So not too much code. We've got the big Emacs Lisp. So we've got the app launcher .el in our Lisp directory. We have require app launcher. We got the function here, Emacs run launcher, and again this is pinched from Reddit from Aurora Draco about a year ago. And as you can see here, what he's doing is he's actually using the Council Linux app. So I've swapped that out for the app launcher, which is a trimmed down version that's just a app launcher on its own without any of the extra code. What I've done is added in a few bits down here, as I said, auto raise, no full screen, undecorated, to move the title bar, set the width and the border. So if I come across to my notes, max frames. So this was some notes I actually made before when I was trying to sort of get this sort of working, and I was using a sort of different syntax with current buffer, get buffer, create scratch. You can see it's slightly different. I don't know if I can just evaluate that, but you can see a lot of the same options: auto raise, full screen, undecorated, height, remove the toolbars, that sort of thing. So that's what I was actually playing around with previously until I actually came across this bit of code. So you can either, there's two functions. There's the one we've just defined here, emacs run launcher, which will create the pop-up. But if you're actually in Emacs and you want to launch an app, you can, let me just undo that. What you can do is run app launcher run app, and that will bring up the launcher in the mini buffer here. So I can just type dconf editor, and you can see it's opening dconf there. So you've got kind of two options. You can actually either use this directly from within Emacs, or you can use it outside Emacs as long as Emacs is running. Because I haven't figured out, as I said, how to actually get it to open without creating a full frame using the -C option. So those are some of the little things. We tried the one with the other one with the Mr. Wang's app launcher, using all the icons, but I'll have to have a look at that and see why that's not working, and if we could get it to use the nerd icons. The other thing is, what is the location of the icons? So I've actually built Emacs from source, so the icons are installed in user local icons. So lsl user local icons, user local share icons, I think it is, user local share icons. What I'll do is just bring across one by, what we've got is different size icons. We've got 128, 16 by 16, 24, then we've got scalable. The difference between the scalable and the ones with a specific size is the scalable is a SVG, whereas the others are PNG files. So apps, Emacs, SVG. What I'll do is I'll just copy this to the desktop and then open this with Emacs. So we've got the scalable, and what I'll do is go by the 16 by 16 apps, Emacs, PNG. So what I want to do here is actually show you that these files can be previewed with Emacs. So first of all, we've got the SVG icon, and what you'll see here, the SVG icon is scalable, but what happens is it's got a white background. So that's probably not something you'd actually want to use in the application launcher. So what I'm doing is just doing this to show you that, okay, that's the 16 by 16, that's too small, so let's get rid of that one and copy a bigger one across so we can actually see 30. Let's do 32. Okay, so now you can see it. So the difference is the PNG for the icon has a transparent background. So if you could actually search the location of these icons directories, you could actually pull out the icons that are used in the desktop file. So for example, local share applications. I've got Emacs here. So what you see is this is a .desktop file for the Emacs client, because when you build Emacs from source, by default it wasn't actually creating the Emacs client.desktop file that would show up in the application launcher. So I'm not I think I actually copy it creates one in a directory, but it wasn't being picked up by GNOME. So what I had to do was copying it in from its location it was actually installed into local share applications. And once I did that, it would show up. But you can see down here we've got the icon equals Emacs. So the name here corresponds to the file name of the image without the extension, obviously. So it should be possible to actually search through these files, because what the app launcher script does is it searches through the exec section of these desktop files in order to find the application to launch. So it should be possible to actually go through and search for the icon string and then match it to the actual icon, but you'd need to specify the search paths for where these icons are actually installed. So it would be possible to pull in icons, but I don't know if there's any issue with rendering multiple icons in a frame that would affect the performance or anything. But it's really not too much of an issue having icons, although it would be nice. But this is basically a rofi clone using emacs. And as I said, the advantage is that it's a GTK. This is a pure GTK application running natively on Wayland. And again, we've styled it to actually remove the title, so it's not. It doesn't look so much like a GTK sort of application being launched. So let me just come back to my init.el. Let's just pick that. So the undecorated option. So that's what it looks like undecorated. If you turn off the undecorated option, what you'll get is the title bar and a border. And as I showed you before, you can actually set the border color, but I don't like having the title bar there, although it does make it easier to view against something of the same background color. As you can see here, it's easier to view like that, but it's still, I don't know, it seems like you're launching an application. You're kind of launching a window, whereas when we remove it, you can see how now it's coming up, and obviously I can't view it quite as well against the same background. So you may want to, style it slightly differently so it's not the same as the theme in your terminal or what have you. You bastard. So that's another little glitch I've sometimes found there. That sort of window glitch where it was coming up, and I think that's just because I was shifting keys and not giving it sort of focus. But yeah, there's the application launcher, and you can see what I've also done is added an internal border to give it a bit of space, so it's not quite butted up against the side of the window there. And also setting the width to about 70, as you can see here. If I scroll down here, you can see that is just about the right width, so it doesn't actually cut off any of the text in here. Some of these have longer text than others, but you see that will show all the text without truncating it. Another thing you can actually do, emacs init.el, is set the alpha. So the alpha is the opacity of the frame. So what I could do is say alpha.90, and then evaluate that by putting the cursor at the end and running Control-X, Control-E. Now if I launch that, what you'll see is it's actually got transparency. So you can actually set this to be transparent, but obviously you need to change the theme, the color here, because you can see it's looking a bit sort of washed out. But that is a quick way to change the color of the window so that it's more visible against something on the same background. So if I change the opacity to the alpha, the opacity to 90, when I bring it up on this screen, you'll see the color is slightly different because the alpha's changed. See, and it's doing that thing again. And there we go. So you can see, yeah, it was sort of changing a bit there, but it does make it look a bit washed out. That's just another option you could do. 95 or 98 means it's not quite so washed out. There we go. So you can still see the sort of background under there, but it's not too washed out. The grey text isn't too washed out and, you know, not readable. And it will have a slightly different color to stuff in the background. So that's just one option that you can do. Let's just remove the alpha there. The other thing that you want to do, which is important, is come across to tweaks. Where is it? Where is it? Windows. Is it in Windows? Right, this is the most important one. Center new windows. By default, it's off. So what happens is if I turn that off, you see it. What will happen? The application launcher will come up in the top right-hand corner, and any applications you launch will also come up in the top left-hand corner instead of being centered, which isn't what you want, because you know you want something bang on the middle, you know, bang in the middle, you know, with focus, so that you can actually see the thing. So let's turn that back on. Center new windows, and then the app launcher actually shows up in the correct place. So that's getting the application launcher set up. So all you need to do is actually come across to the app launcher by Sebastian Way. Come in here, raw, download it, and then put it in your .config emacs lisp directory. Obviously making sure that you're actually sourcing that, so early init. So you need add to list load path / .config emacs lisp. Big emacs init.el. And then what we've got is this block of code require, and then we've got the actual function down here. So that's all you need to do on the Emacs side. But then you've got the tweaks, as I said, where you want to do two things. You want to do center new windows, and you want to change from click to focus, because that's really going to cause issues when switching between workspaces. You can switch between the workspaces, but they won't actually be focused. So typically you'll start typing and it will do something in another window, and that's incredibly irritating. So that's what you need to do in GNOME tweaks. And then in the settings, what you need to do, come into view and customize shortcuts. Again, custom shortcuts, click plus, give it a name, and then the command is emacs client -e double quotes in parentheses emacs -run launcher, and that corresponds to the name of the function up here, emacs run launcher. So that's all you've got to do to get it set up, and this is what we're trying to get away from, this big sort of in-your-face launcher that, you know, we only want this bit up here, this type to search, but yet it's bringing up all this stuff. All that, I mean, you know, it's useful to actually be able to see all the applications you've got installed, but you might, you know, a lot of them might be in folders like this, so you're not actually going to see them listed. So that's what we're trying to get away from, this big horrendous thing here, and replace it with something nice and simple like this, which does have a few glitches, as you saw as I was doing the video, but nothing too major. Files, Firefox. Let's see if we can kind of break it. So there's Firefox. Again, it's not going to switch to the currently running application, and it said most application switchers actually won't do that on GNOME. And again, what you'll notice is some of these don't actually have a description, like settings and Tor don't actually have a description here, and that is something that is provided by the desktop file. So if that really irritated you, what you could do is actually copy the settings.desktop file into your local share application and then add a description so it comes up. But it's just a minor niggle. But you'll see it's also listing OBS here, which is a Flatpak application, so it's actually picking up the Flatpak application as well. So it is actually picking all this stuff up, and you see connections here doesn't have a description. So there we go, software. The other thing that I wanted to mention is there is also a application called GTK Launch, which will actually launch desktop files. So if I run GTK Launch, and then what can I launch? Will it do files? It's no such application. I think it may be called Nautilus. So it's Nautilus. Is it Nautilus? Okay. You can see that's not working. So let's see if I can get it to do Firefox. Let me just close all of these. Firefox. Okay, there we go. Now it's launched. Okay. The issue with it is sometimes what you got to do is type out the desktop, the name of the desktop file. So GTK launch, and you're not going to get auto completion. So GTK launch Chromium, and sometimes what it'll do is it'll put up a thing saying no such application. And if we list ls user share applications, we can see here all the desktop files that have been installed, and we'll see if it's called something else. Chromium browser.desktop. Okay, if I do Chromium browser, it should work. You can see some of these are capitalized. So Chromium browser, was it? There we go. Okay. So that's another way to launch desktop files using GTK Launch. There's also an application called Dex that does the same thing. I just wanted to show you that just because it was something I came across that sort of might be useful. So that's some of the quirks of using application launchers on GNOME, is that a lot of them won't switch to the currently running application. Apparently Albert does, but again, DNF search Albert, not going to show any results. ulauncher is in there. ulauncher. So ulauncher is there. Kupfer, which is a old Python application, actually isn't in the repository. I think it may have been in Ubuntu, but it's really old. It's about 10 years old, and it looks clunky, though it does actually work. So if I search for rofi, what you'll see is I'm going to come up with a shitload of stuff. Ah, great. it will actually, as I scroll through all of this, okay, what you'll see here is you've got rofi, and then you've got rofi wayland, fork of rofi with wayland support, and you're thinking, great, I'm going to use rofi on GNOME. You can't. You can install it, you run it, and it will say something like requires WL root protocol, and that's because it only works on Sway. So rofi is out, it won't work. Interestingly, you can install the original version of rofi on Wayland, but it'll run as a X11 application, and the window switching does actually work in rofi on Wayland, amazingly, for some reason. But I don't know if I can get it to actually. Should I just install it? DNF install rofi just to show you. Okay, rofi themes. Right, rofi. It's actually you got to do like show mode. So let me let me see if I've got something with my old rofi config. I think I should have one in FreeBSD. So various systems, FreeBSD files. I think I've got config for rofi in here. Yep. So we want to do windowed. You got to do like window sort of drun combi. So what's the option? And rofi show drun. Okay, rofi show drun. You can see here it's actually coming up. And if I've got, what have I got open here? So emacs. Oh, so it's not actually got focus. You can see here, not actually got focus. If I can get it to actually see how it's not actually getting focus here. Yeah, I had actually got it to sort of work once. That may be because I've launched it from the terminal. So let's try copying the theme across, and I just killed the terminal there, and I killed that. So you can see it's kind of really weird. Kill rofi. Okay. So what I'm going to do is copy the rofi config into. I've got this. Seeing if it's created the rofi directory. RS no. So what I'll do is I'm just going to copy that config across and create a hotkey just to show you it sort of kind of not working. So cpr git FreeBSD.files.config rofi to config, and then we're going to set a keyboard shortcut. And set it to trigger rofi run. Was it rofi show drun, and I'll set a keyboard shortcut like that, and actually see if I can get this to work and show you. Oops. Okay. So it doesn't have the theme, so that's why. Okay, hang on. I'll remove that and try again. Okay, there we go. It's come up now. So if I type alacrity, It's not, see how it's not actually kind of got focus, although it's Windows up there, it's not focused, and you can see how it's actually shifting across. Okay, see, clicking on that did actually open it. See if I can do Firefox and see if I can get it to switch to the window. See if I can. No, it's not. I could have sworn before that it would actually switch to the window, but obviously I was wrong. But I just wanted to show you what rofi looked like. On Wayland, and how it doesn't actually work. You can see that weird behavior of the window coming up, but you're not actually being able to type in it. So dnf remove rofi. Okay, so remove all of that. So that was rofi not working at all. Let me just clean up that keyboard shortcut. There we go. Come in here, just remove that. So yeah, your options for application launchers on GNOME are really limited. As I said, Albert's not in the repositories. It's got a bug with GNOME 44.1 where it won't be focused. ulauncher, you've got to go through that whole thing of setting a false keyboard shortcut. Then you've got to set a real keyboard shortcut in the settings app. Then you've got to set it to start up with system D. And then once you've gone through that, you'll get like a little thing come up, but it's not totally themed with the rest of GNOME, and it will just launch the applications. It won't switch to the applications. So again, Firefox, Arch Wiki, or you just search for instance, like Linux application launcher. You get a load of application launcher. If I spell it properly. So, if you do that, you'll get a list of things, and they'll typically show you stuff like, here's Albert. And then they'll show you Kupfer, as again, you can see how horribly dated this looks. It does actually work on Wayland, mind you, but it's horrendously ugly. It's really big and in your face as an application launcher. You got ulauncher down here. Again, when you open the preferences for a lot of these things like Albert or ulauncher, you'll see they look totally out of place because they're not written. I'm not sure if ulauncher is a GTK application. Yeah, it is GTK application, but Albert looks totally out of place. ulauncher is a pain to get set up and doesn't really offer anything. Then you've got old things like NumPy. Another one is Synapse. Linux Synapse. Okay, this is an article from several years ago, but you can see this is what Synapse looks like. It comes up with this big launcher here, and you have this sort of scrolling thing, so you can sort of click to search for applications, places, or whatever, and it will come up with a big sort of icon of currently selected application or whatever, and you just type in there, but it doesn't look very clean. And again, it's just going to do basic application launching. It's not going to switch to Windows. So yeah, that's what it looks like. So it does look. It's not minimal, if the icon was just in there and it didn't have all this kind of stuff, it might look a bit better. But to be honest, it's a bit ugly. So again, if you search for Wayland application launcher, Wayland application launcher, you get stuff like Yofi coming up. There's an awesome Wayland. There's a list of Wayland applications, so launchers. So this site sort of lists application launchers that will work on sort of Wayland, and as you can see, you've got a load of ones here. But basically, most of these will be WL root based, or they'll be really ugly. So there really isn't a lot of choice for application launchers on GNOME to replace the default thing coming up here. And the ones that are either a pain to actually get installed or have issues with the hotkeys with Wayland not working. You know, you press the hotkey and it will do, you know, you're supposed to have a thing that's like toggles the application on and off, and it'll come up and then it'll disappear, and next time you hit the keyboard hotkey, it doesn't work. So most of the application launchers have problems. So having a simple thing we can actually bring up with Emacs, although it does have some quirks and some drawbacks and can be a bit rough around the edges. The reason why this is much better is because specifically if you're using your second monitor to play videos, if you press the default thing here, what happens is on the second display, the window actually is sort of kind of brought forward with a big grey background. So the issue is that, you know, if you're using it, for instance, to work on your laptop and have your kids watching something on the main display, it's going to drive them mad every time you switch an application. It's going to move the picture forward. So that's really irritating. So that's why having something like this is a lot less in your face. Type something, it launches it, job done. And again, this will also work on whatever window has got focused. So I can actually bring up this launcher here on my second display as well. It will basically launch on whatever display the cursor is on. So you can run it on whatever display. But if you're in Emacs, you could also just run app launcher, run app, and actually bring up the mini buffer here, rather than sort of bringing up the launcher in sort of mid screen like that. So if you're in Emacs, you can just run app launcher, bring that up, files. But we also wanted a way to launch applications without being in Emacs. It's going to be a bit annoying to have to switch back to Emacs every time you wanted to launch an application. So that's why this comes in handy, so we can launch applications without having to switch to Emacs. But again, the caveat is Emacs has got to be running for this to work, because I haven't figured out how to actually create the frame and have it set like this without it going full screen. So there are a few things to sort of rough edges to work around, but it does the job. It's a lot less in your face than the main app launcher. So those are just a couple of things you need to go through. Again, little recap. You want the tweaks. Remember the tweaks. Windows, send to new windows, secondary click, dconf. You probably want to come into org.gnome.desktop.wm key bindings, and that's where you can do stuff like switch to, you know, change switch to workspace, set keyboard shortcut to switch to a particular workspace by pressing super 1 2 3 4 etc. But I think the easiest way is setting the switch to keyboard left and right, which is basically like swiping on the keyboard, swiping on the trackpad. That's much easier to cycle through the windows like that, rather than using the heads-up display for the application switcher, because you kind of got to go through, like this, and it's a bit of a pain to go through like this, and it's just easier to switch between the windows like that. So that's switching windows. Some of the settings you need. And again, the other thing was Alt F2 LG, bring up looking glass, and that's how you can see the windows, and you press escape to exit out of this. And again, these app names, you can see here you've got WM class, Firefox, but things like xprop won't actually work. Escape. So if I run, I think if you do xprop root, it will show you stuff about the root window. Xprop, is it root? Yeah. So you can see here, do xprop root. You can see it's showing a lot of stuff. I don't think we've got the WM class though. So these are all the supported things. You can see here like the net desktop names, workspace 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if there's a way to use that to actually rename the names. wmctrl does have an option, -H, where I think you can actually rename the windows. So again, L doesn't work. D will list the desktops. S will switch to the desktop. So wmctrl-S101234 will switch. I thought there was a way you could actually, change the number of desktops. The window manager may ignore this request. So wmctrl-L 5 or whatever, it doesn't actually work. So the only things that work in here, the -S option, the -D option, and the -K option to activate show the desktop mode. So again, wmctrl-D, list the desktops, -S, 1 will switch to the desktop, but there's really not much use because you got no idea what's on the desktop, and I said you can't rename any of this stuff. And again, that was the little script unlocked up with an FZF menu, so you can do something like that. Go workspace 2. So it might be possible to sort of take this wmctrl code and kind of shoehorn it into Emacs, so you've kind of got a workspace switcher. And again, there is a Emacs package, wmctrl. It's wmctrl. This one from about 6 years ago. So if I come into here, what you see, the reason why it doesn't work, if I come down to the bottom, wmct, 422 matches. Okay, there's a bit of code down here somewhere where it's actually specifying the command that it uses, which I think is something like wmctrl PID capital G, something like that. But you can see basically it doesn't return anything because wmctrl can't see any of the Wayland windows. So if you're on X11, this might be a nice little tool to actually to use. It will sort of bring up a list of desktops and you can move them about and all that kind of stuff, but doesn't work on Wayland, unfortunately. So that's a wrap up of the app launcher. I'm trying to go into some depth about how app launching works on GNOME, what doesn't and why it doesn't work. But that's using Emacs as an application launcher, and I think it works pretty well. There are a few little glitches, as I said, but for a simple application launcher that you can customize, you can, as I said, you can change the color of all this. I haven't found a way, as I said, to actually load a different theme, so it'd be nice if there was a way to kind of shoehorn something in here to actually launch it with a particular theme, so that when you run it on something with the same background, it'll have a, be a bit more distinguished. You could distinguish it a bit more. You can't add a border around this because you can see here we're getting that run up thing come up. See quick. Okay, and that's just because I was faffing about with the keys, not focusing it. And I'm pressing the keyboard shortcut, doesn't work. So yeah, there are a little few glitches. It's better to show the glitches in the video rather than you experience them and wondering what the fuck's going on. Okay, so yeah, that's it. That's the those are kind of like a list of some of the launchers, what doesn't work. Things like Albert, ulauncher, Synapse. You can see Rofi was a total fail. And the native one, I had tried it before and did seem to work, but that was on a previous version of GNOME. But as you could see, you couldn't even type into the box and you'd get all this weird behavior. So that's why we switch into using Emacs. And again, you can customize all of this code here. You can change the width, the height, whether you want it to be decorated with the title. Again, if you want to have a title, if you want to have the border, what you need to do is border width, again, .t, and we'll say set a border width to say like 4, and then border color. What should we have? Red, pink, yellow. Let's just go with blue. Okay, and you can see it's now got a sort of blue, sort of 4-pixel border that comes up. But again, you can't have the border without the title bar there. So that's the sort of issue. If I turn on undecorated here, just to show you, and then launch that, you'll see that there is no border. Yeah, there's no border there. So the undecorated option will remove the title board and the title bar and the border. Internal border width. I don't think there is a internal border color. Internal border color. I don't think there is. There's something called a fringe, which is like margins to the left and right, but that's not really what we want. Yeah, as you can see, even though I've got an internal border color set up, you can't style the actual internal border by the looks of things. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover, but I wanted to go in some depth about all the mechanics of GNOME. So I'll put links to all this under the video, and yeah, really nice, simple. Escape to quit, quick to come up, does the job, and it's a lot less in your face than bringing this up like that. color picker, color profile viewer. So sometimes it can have an issue where it fails to launch the application, but actually just restart and Emacs sort of fixes the issue. So text editor, yep, there we go. I was just trying to go through and see if I could actually break it and have something not open correctly. Document viewer, yep. Yeah, so you can see it's launching everything. It's picking up things from picking up Flatpak applications. So it will pick up all the applications in user share applications, as well as local share applications, as well as applications installed with Flatpak, and I've got them installed with the -- user option, so they're installed in -var, so it'd be -var app. Get where they actually store them. .local share. .local. I thought there was a place where they actually stored in config. There's a place where it does actually install the desktop files on Flatpak, but I can't remember offhand where that is. But anyway, it does pick them up, so that's not an issue. So I'll put links to all this under the video, and that's all for now.